Hello, everybody, and welcome to Decoding the WSL, the podcast dedicated to the stats and facts in the WSL. I'm your host, Sam Biccarino, and we're here for the Game Week 10 review today. With me, I've got two of the regulars. No Izzy Duddy today, but I am joined with, by a man that I only saw probably 48 hours ago. Not even 48 hours, it was yesterday, 24 hours ago. Mr. Tom Maher, I'm losing my days.
Hiya, Sam. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm much warmer now today than we were sort of sat almost cuddled up in the cold at LCL yesterday, weren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, me and Tom yesterday recorded an episode of Decoding the Match. We were at the LCL Brighton game. If you haven't seen it already, go check it out. It is in your Spotify feeds, but it's all done on video, so I'd recommend checking it out on YouTube if you haven't already, and obviously subscribe and stuff while you're there, might as well. Someone who was also at a WSL game watching quite a close game as well yesterday was Jacob Bernstein. You were at Spurs, weren't you?
I was indeed. It was a fantastic afternoon at Brisbane Road. I'm sure we'll get into it later, but yeah, I'm very happy going into the week.
Yeah, I've got a feeling there's going to be just like a 10-minute monologue from you when we get onto the Spurs game about how fantastic it was. There'll be a longer. You'll speak for longer than Spurs were leading for, I think, at the weekend. But there were obviously other games going on this weekend as well. 6 of them, in fact, no draws across any of them. Just 6 wins. Arsenal were living it up at the Emirates as the Canadian opened the scoring in their 2-1 win over Liverpool. Tottenham spurred into life late on to win from behind at home to Villa. Jocelyn was feeling the pressure as his LCL side were kept quiet in their loss to Brighton at home. Bunny did indeed prey on the Foxes and has now scored more goals than the Midland side in the WSL this season. Skinner was the winner and the loser as Marcus Manchester got the better of Rianne's Hammers. And finally was the result of the weekend. Sørensen stumped Sonia and Bompastel Blues couldn't beat the brilliance of Brosnan. But we'll start today's pod at the Emirates with Arsenal 2, Liverpool 1. This one was Saturday's game. Olivia Smith opening the scoring for Bita Olsen, capitalised on Ruben Moyes' defensive positioning to make it 1-0, and Stina Blackstenius scored quite late on with a fantastic finish to make it 2-1, a win for Arsenal. Tom, you were there. How was the game?
Yeah, it was really interesting. It was a really good game. It was tight, a lot tighter than Arsenal would have wanted it to be. I think it was kind of a match, or the way the game state developed, it was characterised by big injuries. Both sides were without their captain from the start. Kim Little was on the bench for Arsenal, so that was a boost for them, and Leah Williamson, obviously vice captain, on the bench as well. And then Grace Fisk had to pull out of England camp and wasn't fit to make the squad at all for Liverpool. In fact, Liverpool only had 4 outfield players on their bench for this one, so including 16-year-old Maisie Truman. Really exciting opportunity for her. But I thought Liverpool did quite well given the squad that they had. Obviously for Arsenal, they were also missing Daphne van Domselaar and Chloe Kelly. Sounds likely we won't see either of them again in 2025 play on the football pitch. That left Annette Borg to make her competitive debut for Arsenal. Wasn't the most convincing debut. Shouldn't have a huge amount to do. But it's good to get that under your belt because she's probably going to be quite busy, I'm imagining, in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, it was an interesting one, obviously characterised by the most Stina Blackstenius goals. She misses a great chance, but shortly before. But obviously, it is a fantastic bit of defending, I think, from Gemma Evans to come back and make that block of that, what seemed like an open goal for Stina Blackstenius. Also kind of huffed and puffed, and again kind of started well, but weren't able to take a commanding lead. And then, they left themselves open to that sucker punch. And Bita Olsen absolutely made sure that they felt it. She's now got the record of the only player to score four goals in her first 5 WSL starts, which is exceptional, and she's changed Liverpool's fortunes this season. Even just goal scorers this season, only Khadija Shaw, Melvin Mallar, and one Stina Blackstenius have scored more in the WSL this year than her. Blackstenius also got scored a 13th goal from the subs bench against the Gareth Taylor side again. He must surely be sick of the sight of her. And that's a league record in the WSL. And yeah, I think two Swedish strikers really stole the show. Bita Olsen now has goals against Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, Brighton, some of the best teams in the league this season, and you just really can't underestimate her impact. And obviously defensively, Liverpool were phenomenal as well. Jenna Clark, I thought, was especially good. She won 9 of her 11 duels, more than any other player. And yeah, I think there was positives to take for both teams. I think for Arsenal, it was so vital they got a win in this game. And Slegers in the post-match was quite adamant about the fact that this was the firmest she'd ever been at halftime in the dressing room, that she wasn't happy at all with the way the first half had panned out. I thought one section of what she said was really interesting. She said, "We get comfortable after scoring the first goal. We find more backward passes instead of forward passes, and that's how you kind of put yourself into a situation where it gets hard. And we said we want to spend time in their half as much as possible and suffocate them and stack attacks, which we did much better in the second half." And yeah, I think that was, obviously Arsenal just need to, that feels like the difference this season to last. It felt like, even in this fixture last season, they scored the first goal, then they kept on scoring. They beat Liverpool 4-0. This time, very different story. But yeah, encouragement for both teams, I think, to be taken, as well as concern for both teams, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the thing that really stood out for me when I was looking at some of the stats, sort of prepping for the pod, was the fact that Stina Blackstenius, only Bunny Shaw has scored more goals than her in the WSL this season, which, considering she's not exactly been a nailed-on starter, she's not exactly been, should we say, I think she's her usual amount of reliability is the kindest way of wording it. I always think of the tweet that I saw last season, which was that Stina Blackstenius might miss 8 shots in a row, but you better not give her a 9th. Which I just love, and I feel like it just encapsulates how she plays so well, because she can be so clinical at times. And to be honest,
Sam,
yeah.
So I was just going to say that was quite something that Tim Stillman asked Renee about, actually, Renee Slegers about after the game, about how she does that. She misses these chances, but it doesn't seem to affect her, and she just keeps on going. And obviously, Renee Slegers played with Stina Blackstenius at Rosengård in 2017. They're on the same squad together, so she's known her for so long, and she was talking about how at that time Stina Blackstenius was having difficulties managing that. But it shows a real resilience in the mentality to be able to keep on. She doesn't get downhill, so she misses the chance. She sets herself again, and that was something that Renee Slegers was really praising her for. And I think Jacob's going to go into more detail about Bunny Shaw a bit later, but that's something I kind of saw in Bunny Shaw, oddly enough, this weekend, and very similar kind of missing chances, but doesn't let it get to her, and still ends up, probably being the player of the match.
Yeah, I think she's having a good season, Stina Blackstenius. She's normally, I think last season, off the top of my head, she was a real XG underachiever. She accumulated quite a lot, but wasn't obviously top of the charts. But she's overachieving on her XG this season. She's plus 0.7, which puts her about 25th in the WSL. So she's not elite in that sense, but she's also doing a lot better than she usually does. Which, yeah, maybe there's something has changed there. But Bita Olsen, I think, is, like you said, the other Swede that's had a fantastic start to her career at Liverpool. She obviously didn't play every game this season after joining late on, but despite the fact she's only made 7 appearances in the WSL, she's scored 2/3 of Liverpool's goals so far this season. Jacob, a word on her, because she's, well, you'd hope Liverpool aren't going to be over-relying on her, but she's certainly filling a gap, considering some of the players that left them in the summer.
Yeah, exactly. I think she's been fantastic in the last few games. It's really great to see, especially considering, as you mentioned, like Liverpool losing players like Olivia Smith over the summer. There were worries about how they would replace her if they had enough in their squad, and especially with some of the injuries they've had in attacking positions, players like Marie Herbinger and Sophie Roman-Haag being injured and being out. It's great to see Bita Olsen step up and perform. although Liverpool lost this game and although they're still bottom of the league, I think they'll take a lot of encouragement from, if you look at their kind of block of their last 5 games, they haven't won, but they have drawn 2 and they've had 3 losses, which have all been 2-1 losses. Very, very unlucky. Their losses have been against City, Arsenal and Spurs. And Liverpool led in both the City and Spurs game, and obviously in the Arsenal game on the weekend, they were level. So I think this week will be a big week for Liverpool because obviously they play Villa in midweek, which we'll go into more detail on the preview, and then they play West Ham on the weekend. So there's a big opportunity for Liverpool to get some points, and potentially that they haven't got their win yet, but if they can have a strong 2 games and go into Christmas with some more points on the board into that winter break, I think that will be a real positive for them. But yeah, it's just a shame for Bita Olsen's sake that her goals haven't resulted in more Liverpool points, but really, really encouraging for her.
Yeah, she's been a fantastic signing for them. And like you say, Liverpool have got their rearranged game against Villa coming up this midweek. Let's go on to Villa because they visited Spurs on Sunday. One of the, I was going to say 4 12 o'clock games, but ended up being 3, didn't it? Villa went down to 10 after a second yellow at 65 minutes. Kirsty Hansen then opened the scoring for Villa in the 84th minute before Bethany England equalised just a minute later, and Olivia Holt scored the winner 90+5 with a really good assist from Drew Spence. And from obviously me and Tom didn't watch this game, or we watched some of it. We had it on the laptop while we were at LCL, but it certainly seemed that Drew Spence had a fantastic game in this one, Jacob.
She did. I think it's interesting. I want to split my analysis into kind of 2 parts. I think the first part is just looking at the first 65 minutes of the game, because I think the game changed on 65 minutes. I think Spurs dominated the game on the whole. Villa had a couple of early chances that were saved by Lisa Kopp. And Spurs' biggest chance of the game fell to Jess Naz. Olivia Holt put her through and Jess Naz's shot. It was a 0.66 XG chance, which went wide. And then on 65 minutes, the game came to life. It didn't really look like it was going anywhere. It looked like it may have been going to a 0-0 draw, or Spurs could have nicked a goal. But on 65 minutes, Oceane Deslanders got sent off. A second yellow, really rash challenge on Olivia Holt. And then you're kind of thinking, okay, Villa have got 10 players. Can Spurs go on and win the game? And Villa went 1-0 up. It was a really nice goal, a great ball over the top from Rachel Maltby, and Kirsty Hansen had really good composure. Molly Bartrip was defending against her, and Kirsty Hansen scored her 4th WSL goal of the season. And at that point, you're kind of thinking it's really difficult to come back into the game. And I looked at timings in terms of when the goals were scored. So Villa scored their goal on 83 minutes and 15 seconds. The kickoff was on 84 minutes and 30 seconds. And Beth England scored her equaliser on 84:59. So 29 seconds after the restart, only a minute and a half after Villa's goal, Spurs had equalised. It was a great goal. Ball in from Amanda Nilden from the left, and it was like a glancing header from Beth England. And obviously to get the equaliser is fantastic, but I just loved the mentality of some of the Spurs players. Beth England's celebration was brilliant. From a fan perspective, she did a badge tap, which I always love to see. But it was actually Lana Gunning-Williams who got the ball out of the net, brought it back to the halfway line. And it's kind of that mentality of, yes, we've got the equaliser, but actually the opposition have 10 players, we can go on and win it. And we did. It felt like there was something potentially coming because the pressure was relentless from Spurs. We had a lot of corners and set pieces and chances going into the final moments. And yeah, Sam's right. I mean, that ball from Drew Spence was absolutely brilliant through ball to pick her out. And Olivia Holt, who's been Spurs' stand-up player this season, scores. And I had it was a fantastic goal. I loved the scenes at the end. Olivia Holt almost threw herself to the floor. Drew Spence and Evelina Simonen ran off together celebrating Drew Spence's assist. And yeah, a couple of players that I wanted to pick out. The first one is of course Olivia Holt, because she's probably been Spurs' best player this season. And in the game, she had 6 shots, 5 shot-creating actions, 4 progressive carries. All of those were the most in the game. She had 0.7 expected assists, despite not getting an assist. That's because she got the assist for Jess Naz's goal. Again, that was the most in the game, and that's her 3rd WSL goal of the season. She's also got 2 goals in the Subway Cup. And she's just been absolutely brilliant for Spurs, and really filled that gap that was missing last season, but was taken up by Grace Clinton 2 seasons ago for Spurs. In terms of goal scoring, now Spurs have had 3 players who have scored more than 2 goals this season. That's Holt, England, and Tamberg, and that's more than last season. Spurs only had 2 players who scored more than 2 goals. That's Beth England and Drew Spence. In terms of points, Spurs are up to 19 points this season, and we're not even halfway through the season. And last season, we accumulated 20 points. So we're only 1 point away from our points total of the whole season last season, which I think is testament to Martin Ho and how he's transformed the side. And the last thing I wanted to mention was just a word on Martin Ho, because I sit in the season ticket section at Brisbane Road, and before the game, this was literally 15-20 minutes before kickoff, Martin Ho came up to the season ticket section. There's a bit of a kind of reception cafe area before you go and sit in your seat for all the season ticket holders. And he came up and spoke with every single person that was in the season ticket section, took photos, signed stuff, had proper conversations. And it was he's just so lovely. Aside from the football, I think to be able to take the time to do that, it was such a nice personal touch. And as I said, like 15-20 minutes before kickoff, when most managers would be getting their team ready and stressing, he had the time to come up and speak to people. And then at the end of the match, as soon as the full-time whistle blew, there was a fist pump. He turned around to the fans and fist pumped, and you could see the emotion in his face. And I think that just, both of those things that I mentioned just embody just how impressive Martin Ho's been. I think he's got a real connection with the fans, and I think there's a lot of positivity for Spurs in this first half of the season.
Yeah, I think Martin Ho coming in has been not a breath of fresh air necessarily, but it's certainly been a big change from Robert Villahamn. I think Robert Villahamn was generally well liked as a person, but obviously wasn't really getting the results. And yeah, Martin Ho's very much getting the results, and it seems like doing it in the right way. He's very well liked at the club. He's very well spoken of around the media as well, which it's nice to see. And as much as I'm an Arsenal fan, I do think good luck to him. I like to see the right kind of people succeed, and he certainly seems like the right kind of person. So there was a bit of a negative from this game was Jess Naz, not in her performance, but her injury. She had, from what looked like on the TV, quite a nasty fall, and needed to be stretchered off. She sort of immediately waved over for assistance, and from what I've read today, there's no official confirmation one way or the other. It's expected that it's probably an ankle injury rather than the dreaded 3 letters, but hopefully it's a small injury break for her and nothing too serious, because she is such talent and obviously is so young still as well. It'd be horrible if she had another long-term injury. She obviously had an ACL injury a few years ago, so she's already been through it, and hopefully she won't have it again. Let's move on to the game that me and Tom were at. LCL 0, Brighton 1 at the Copper Jacks. Kika Seka getting the only goal of the game quite early on. Madison Haley did take a penalty in this game as well, but it was very well saved by Elena Lette. Brighton's first away win of the season, which wasn't a result I was expecting. If you watch our show that me and Tom did, you'll see me saying before the game that I was sort of leaning more towards an LCL win the longer the week went on. And Kikiseka, didn't take long to tell me to shut up, basically. It's 2 wins in a row for Brighton. Man City are the only team that have also done that in the last 2 WSL games. So they are on a bit of a run at a time where wins are hard to come by in the WSL with any sort of certainty. Nikita Paris almost equalised in this game with a lob, but Shamaka Ndozi got fingertips to it. And Tom, how good was Shamaka Ndozi yesterday? Because I think if it wasn't for Courtney Brosnan, she probably would have been our keeper in our team of the week.
Yeah, there was a lot of really good keeper performances this weekend as well. Faye Kirby and Leitzig as well were both brilliant, I thought. But yeah, she was fantastic. It was kind of that rocky period after Brighton had scored where I think we spoke about it. Basically, London City was sitting back off Brighton. Brighton took advantage of that. And then after the goal, London City pushed up and just put a lot more pressure on that back line of Brighton. And that pressure kind of amounted to a couple of mistakes and a couple of really good chances for London City, and a few phenomenal saves. And actually, Elena Lette also made a couple of really brilliant saves in this game. But yeah, that one to tip it over the bar was a real highlight reel save from Chivaka Ndozi. And we know how good she is. She's the CAF goalkeeper of the year, women's goalkeeper of the year. She won the Golden Glove at WAFCON. She's, been in Arsenal fans' nightmares for the last 3 years since that penalty shootout. That's how good she is, really. And yeah, it's just great to see brilliant goalkeepers join in the WSL because, it's the quality is getting so high now. And we're seeing a lot of teams like Arsenal and Chelsea who are accustomed to winning 5 or 6-0 with regularity, not getting those numbers. And I don't think that's all due to goalkeeping improvements, but I certainly think that, it's not helping for sure. And Ndozi was a prime example of that. And I think the whole defensive unit worked really well for Brighton. Sam, we were kind of talking about how that back three that they had, Manuela Venegas, Caitlin Hayes, and Mweka Minami, were all new to they weren't playing for Brighton this time last year. And for them to come in and perform so cohesively, I mean, Vidosic talked about how they were a bit too compact in that first half, and in the second half, they were much less compact, and they didn't allow London City the same kind of space in behind that, especially Rafiat Imran found in the first half. And yeah, they helped keep Freya Godfrey, who's been one of the best players in the league this season, quite quiet. But yeah, I think it's a vital win for Brighton. It really is.
I think Marissa Ollis-Lagers as well on that sort of left wing back position for Brighton did a real number on Freya Godfrey. I watched the women's football show earlier and saw the highlights back of it as well. And the only time Freya Godfrey was on it was when she basically cut inside to get away from Ollis-Lagers. So you can see the sort of the job she did on her. Only the second game this season that London City Lionesses have failed to score in, which I think goes some way to showing how potent they've been in front of goal and how well Brighton did. I know the interview we did with Maisie Simon, she mentioned that when the opposition had the ball around the outside of the box, she wasn't scared. She knows that she's got a really solid defensive line. They've got really good shape, and she's got a fantastic goalkeeper behind her. We won't touch too more on this game because myself and Tom did cover it in quite some depth yesterday. Go check out that YouTube video if you haven't already. In the meantime, we're going to move on to Leicester 0, Man City 3. This one, the last of the 12 o'clock games at King Power. We looked at the lineups before the game and saw it was a front four of Shaw, Hemp, Miedemar and Fagino. So was quite surprised when it was still 0-0 at half time. And Man City couldn't break Leicester down until Carolyn came off the bench. She helped Bunny Shaw get 2 goals before Bunny Shaw then set up Carolyn to get one of her own. Not a good day for Leicester, but at least they didn't have to play in that Man City away kit. City's 9th win of the season. No other team has won more than 6, and there are actually 5 teams that haven't even won 4 matches so far this season. So I think that really goes some way to show how good Man City have been so far since basically that opening day against Chelsea. Jacob, I know you want to speak a bit more on Bunny Shaw. I sort of teased at the start that going into this weekend, Leicester and Bunny Shaw were both on 6 goals, and now Bunny Shaw is 2 goals ahead of the entire team of Leicester. I'll let you take the floor.
Yeah, I just did a bit of a deep dive into some Bunny Shaw stats because I just thought, it's just some of the stats are just fascinating. I mean, she's currently the top scorer in the WSL with 8 goals, obviously getting 2 this weekend against Leicester. In the game against Leicester, she had 10 shots. City as a team had 30 shots in the game, which I just thought was crazy. 3.4 XG for City to 0.1 for Leicester. Leicester only had 2 shots on target, which is slightly worrying. For Bunny Shaw, she's 3 ahead of the next best in the league in terms of goals, Blackstenius and Mallard on 5 goals. And then looking at shots, I mean, it's no surprise that Bunny Shaw is the top goal scorer. She had 55 shots in the league, which is 23 shots more than anyone else. And the next best is Viv Miedemar. So that just shows the kind of the volume of shots that take place from the City attack. The most interesting stat that I saw on Bunny Shaw is she's still somehow underperformed her XG. She has 10 XG and has obviously scored 8 goals. She's the joint third biggest XG underachiever in the league. I think it's after Ebony Salmon and Vivacay from memory, which is just fascinating that you have the league's top scorer being an XG underachiever. But yeah, more broadly on City, I think it's amazing. I mean, they've obviously got 9 WSL wins in a row now, 6 points clear of Chelsea. And I also wanted to touch on City's defence, because one potential worry at the beginning of the season was City's defence. They had no clean sheets in their first 6. But since then, they've had 3 clean sheets in their last 4. They've obviously had Alex Greenwood out for quite a few weeks, but we've seen Rebecca Kanak come back into the side, which could potentially be part of the reason as to why they're being stronger defensively. And yeah, I think if City can go into the winter break with potentially 10 wins in a row, 6 points clear, that will be a really, really strong start to the season for them. For Leicester, I think the only positive that they can take from the game is that they managed to keep City out for 74 minutes, really. But I think, yeah, all the talk has to be on City. It was great to see Carolyn score a goal. Bunny Shaw also got the assist for Carolyn's goal. And yeah, big 3-0 win for City.
Yeah, I think Carolyn's one of those players that I think Man City have had a real coup in getting her, and hopefully for her sake she starts to get some more minutes now. But it's so tough for her, because when she's got, I mean, that front 4, like I mentioned, Shaw, Hemp, Miedemar and Fujino, they are 4 world-class players that you've got to try and dislodge. And even Carolyn, I think herself, is a world-class player and is playing in that way at the moment. She was so good in the brief spell that she had. She's hopefully going to get a bit of rotation there. But yeah, the Bunny Shaw stuff I thought was quite interesting that you mentioned there, because I think Man City have, when you were saying it, I think Man City have always, or in the last few years anyway, had kind of like a one-trick system. They love to give it into Bunny Shaw. They, like, each season they sort of have something that they do a lot more than anyone else. I know the last couple of years it was definitely crosses. I think at the moment it's sort of like aerial duels. They're really winning those as well. And it's not like Chelsea or an Arsenal where they're a bit better than someone else. And I think Arsenal, for example, I think they've got the most progressive pass in the league, but not that much more than everyone else, whereas City seem to be way ahead on some stats. They're keeping that up now. And yeah, won each of their last 4 away games. No other WSL team has done that. So, Tom, I don't know, can you see anyone or anything slowing City down, or are they just going to march on?
Well, they put themselves in a fantastic position. Now they're 6 points clear. And I thought what was really impressive about this was, I think Shaw was talking after the game about Jurgelitz's team talk, and it was all just about being patient and being in the right areas. And, I just think that's really good management and just the kind of message that you want to be getting across to your team. He does seem like a very relaxed and kind of rarely phased manager. And I think that's quite helpful to have, especially in a game like this when everyone's saying how much you should be beating Leicester and you get to 74 minutes. I think if Arsenal or Chelsea are in that position this season, it would be a different story, because the pressure and just everything just seems to be getting to those sides a lot more than it is getting to City at the moment. And I completely echo what both you said. What I found, and especially Jacob's point about their defence, because I thought 2 of the best players for City were somebody I've been critical of in the past, but Leila Ouahabi. She had 5 key passes more than any other player, 4 accurate crosses more than any other player, created 1 big chance, from defence is really impressive. And then Jacob touched on Rebecca Kanak as well. She had 11 out of 14 accurate long balls, which is really high percentage, 92% pass success rate, making the most successful passes of any player, 2 key passes, had the most touch of the ball, and for good measure, created 1 big chance as well. So, this is actually something about this game that I found astonishing. Manchester City created 9 big chances in this game, 9, and to Leicester's none, obviously. But, and I just thought it was quite funny, Passmore after the game saying that, he felt the score flattered City. I was like, I don't think it did. I've got to say, Rick, I don't think it did.
Yeah, 9 is a lot. I can't remember what the sort of threshold is on it. It's something like 0.35 xg, and it's like if it's over that, it's counted as a big chance. So yeah, to get 9 is insane. I was just having a look as we're talking. Man City got 3.4 xg in the game. So yeah, scoring 3 goals, I don't really think flatters them, especially when Leicester got 0.1. I think it sounds about right. Let's move on to the other Manchester side that won this weekend. This one at 12:15 because the traffic around LSV was that bad that West Ham turned up late. But Man U 2, West Ham 1. Elizabeth Turland opening the scoring in the first half before Martinez scored an overhead kick equaliser, which I'm going to come back to in a moment, before Dominique Janssen then got the winner from a free kick with about 20 minutes still to go, although I don't think much happened in those 20 minutes because on the Women's Football Show, that was the end of the game. So I think Man United must have just seen it out pretty comfortably from there. The 10th consecutive meeting that Man United have scored first against West Ham. And yeah, West Ham are not having a good time of it at the moment. They lose for an 8th time in the WSL this season, the only team to do so. And 22 goals conceded in those 8 games is in the 10 games so far, is the most in the WSL. Before, I do want to touch on West Ham a little bit in terms of the fact that they're obviously not having a great season so far, but I do want to ask you both. Martinez's goal, I am adamant that is an absolute mishit. I think she's trying to score an overhead kick and trying to score, but I saw when I watched it back, she kicks it, gets up, and then looks around, is like looking for the ball before the ball's gone in the goal, and then celebrates obviously when it goes in. I think this is a fluke.
Jacob, what do you think?
I think you've got to give her credit where credit's due. It was a ridiculous finish. I think she 100% meant it.
I'm with Jacob on this one, I'm afraid. It's just, she scores from such ridiculous angles. I feel like she probably didn't envisage that, but she was definitely trying to score at least.
Oh yeah, I think she's trying to score, but I don't think she's trying to lob, is what I mean. Yeah. I think she's trying to get a shot on target. Yeah.
I think that would be the most audacious goal. I don't think I've ever seen a looping bicycle kick chip. Like, I don't even know you could conceive of that type of goal, Yeah,
I wouldn't even think of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Shakira, if you're listening, let us know. Was it on purpose? But let's touch on West Ham generally, because I think Man United are sort of... Yeah, I don't think there's too much to say about them. They're just sort of consistently going along, sort of doing enough, rotating just about enough. Obviously, Dominique Janssen went into the back line again this weekend, but West Ham losing for an 8th time in a row. And yeah, Tom, I think if it wasn't for Liverpool, obviously still being winless this season, West Ham might be getting a bit more coverage about their season.
Yeah, I think that they, the win against Everton and the draw against Leicester has provided some kind of respite, and making the quarterfinals of the Subway League Cup has obviously helped as well. I think with West Ham, there was only one chance I can think of from West Ham that happened after the Janssen goal, and it was Shakira Martinez cross into Rico Ueki, who should be doing better probably to get the header on target. But yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I feel like it's such frustrating mistakes in this game for West Ham, because they play so well and they do so well to get themselves level and to get to 1-1. And then, in the first half, we see an unbelievably good block from Vivian Asai, putting her body on the line, absolutely phenomenal. And then, she just completely reminds us why she's a striker, and that she's a striker when she gives away that needless foul on the edge of the box. And it's just like, when you've got players that dead ball specialists like Dominique Janssen, it's criminal to be doing that. And you just can't give United a chance on a set piece like that. And I think that'd be so frustrating for Rianskin and West Ham fans. And I think Asai is obviously one of their best players, but that just seems like a silly mistake to make. And I feel like, obviously, you're not going to be judging West Ham's season on this kind of match. Away at United isn't going to define West Ham's season most teams lose or don't get a win away at United. But I think this has been really disappointing this season because I feel like last season gave Hammers hope that things could be different. They just haven't been. And I think this game against Liverpool at home before the break next weekend, I think it's just vitally important that West Ham get a statement win in that match to really set them up for the next, put themselves up into 10th at least, maybe temporarily, depending on how Everton do against Arsenal, but just put some daylight between them and Liverpool, because if they don't beat Liverpool and if they lose to Liverpool, then you're really looking at this season and thinking, where is the progress made?
Yeah, it's not looking like a great season for West Ham, but yeah, it's still somewhere they can go. And you mentioned about Everton might be able to hold above them if they can get a win against Arsenal, which, although you might think that is a bit far-fetched, it's probably a little bit less far-fetched after yesterday's result. Chelsea 0, Everton 1, the final game of the weekend. This one, 2:30 at Kingsmeadow. Chelsea's unbeaten run of 34 games coming to an end. Their first loss in 18 months since back in May 2024. Hanoke Ashi scored the only goal of the game after getting away from Ellie Carpenter, which I don't think so many people are going to do this season. Only the second goal that Chelsea have conceded at home this season. They've been so sort of defensively resilient, even if they're not scoring loads of goals at home. They're definitely defensively very good. But this game, they had 79% possession, 30 shots, but no goals. It was Courtney Brosnan's first WSL game since September the 19th, and I don't think that's correlation without causation. Chelsea did come close on quite a few occasions. I think they hit the post a couple of times. Martina Fernandez had a clearance off the line. And yeah, I think if I was a Chelsea fan, I'd just have to put it down to one of those days. I think Chelsea probably did everything they could within the game, to be honest, without actually putting the ball in the goal. Jacob, obviously there was a few team changes this time. There was no Millie Bright. She was on the bench. Natalie Bjorn wasn't in the squad at all. And both of those had started all 9 games in the WSL so far for Chelsea. Do you think that was enough to sort of throw them off a bit?
Yeah, I think potentially, obviously, that's a big change of their kind of staples in defence, and obviously the players that replaced them were kind of makeshift centre backs, both Naomi Garma and Lucy Bronze, who are kind of used to be seeing as wing backs. But you still should expect Chelsea to win this game, and I don't think it probably wasn't a defensive issue because they dominated the game, so it was maybe more their lack of clinicality. I only ended up catching the back end of this game just because I was on my way back from Brisbane Road, but just the last like 15-20 minutes were just chaos, and those final minutes of added time where Chelsea just had like set piece after set piece, and it was just absolutely heroic from Everton. Chelsea, yeah, as you said, Sam, Chelsea had 30 shots. Alyssa Thompson and Vika Kaptein had 5 shots each. There was that Sam Kerr shot cleared off the line. It really just wasn't Chelsea's day. They hit the woodwork twice in added time from set pieces. But yeah, you've got to give it to Everton. They've defended valiantly, fantastic goalkeeping, and yeah, it's just an incredible win from Everton. I mean, last time out, Everton lost 3-1 to West Ham, so I just really didn't see this coming, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think anyone did. I think I was also on my way home after the game, and I getting on trains and stuff. I didn't even have the signal to watch along, but obviously in our group chat, I did get a message from, I think it was from Izzy that put the message in first. It was like, Everton has scored, and I was like, oh, let's keep more of an eye on this if I can. Tom, Everton have now scored 8. They've got 8 points in 6 away games so far this season. They've got a positive goal difference in doing so. And at home, they have 0 points with a -7 goal difference from their 4 games, losing obviously all 4 of them. Why do you think it might be that they're doing better away from home?
Yeah, I don't really agree with both of you. I saw this one come in. Everton had 0 clean sheets this whole season, all competitions. Chelsea hadn't failed to score in 67 games in a row. I mean, surely it's an Everton clean sheet. It's just classic, isn't it? But I thought, it's very hard to know about why it's working better for Everton away from home. I mean, it really maybe played into that kind of backs up against the wall mentality that they had. Obviously, you mentioned Courtney Brosnan. She was absolutely sensational. 7 saves, 4 inside the box, 4 punches, 3 accurate long balls, 2 high claims. Just incredible. She was the player of the match on the day. And I think somebody who was almost as good as her, if not just as good, was Ruby Mace. Was fantastic at centre back. There was one moment especially I remember, because I was able to catch this because my bus home, I was just using up my 4G watching it from the London City match, and I think Tash Dowry was on commentary, and at one point Ruby Mace just completely clears out Aggie Beaver-Jones and gets the ball, but it's just a really physical challenge. And Tash Dowry just summed up perfectly. She was like, that was a Millie Bright challenge. And I thought that was just exactly what it was, really we are up for this, take this lead away from us if you dare. And I just, 24 defensive actions from Ruby Mace, just absolutely sensational. And, I thought Honoka Hayashi was brilliant. Claire Wheeler was fantastic as well. Tony Payne didn't stop running. It was, I thought that they were fantastic at Everton. I think what I will say for Chelsea is that, I do think on another day it goes differently, and on another day it has gone differently in this exact fixture. I covered them last year when Everton were holding on to a point till the very last second, and Lauren James scores in that bottom corner and denies them that point. So, they're good at setting up, and against these big sides away from home. They did well against Manchester City, even though they end up losing. They did well against United before they really learnt their lessons from those games, I think. And you could see that in this match. I think definitely an interesting one to see Bright not start this one. I just thought that was, given that she didn't go away on international duty and the fact that you don't have the consistency of Bjorn in that backline, I was surprised that she didn't start this one. I thought it made a bit more sense why she didn't start against Barcelona, but this one, especially when you're playing, like Jacob said, a makeshift centre-back in Lucy Bronze, that felt a bit odd. And then LJ as well, Lauren James, who was obviously a fantastic footballer, just didn't quite, well, she just wasn't 100%. And I think maybe in hindsight, it might have been better to bring her off the bench for those last 30 minutes rather than have her start the game. But yeah, I think like you both said, it's all credit to Everton. But I do think there's, as much as I wouldn't worry about it as a Chelsea fan, I do think this game wasn't something we hadn't seen before. Tottenham went to Chelsea, put up a really solid display, only lost 1-0, and it was it wasn't like a great high XG chance that Chelsea created that they won that game with. It was a Kira Walsh shot from quite far out, and then you're looking at the Liverpool game as well. They didn't create a huge amount. It was a Alyssa Thompson unbelievable goal that got them a point there. And then, you're looking even further back to Leicester. They scored that goal with Aggie Beaver-Jones early on, and then Leicester kind of do a really good job of containing them. And I think maybe that's a little bit of a concern. And I feel like Chelsea and Arsenal are having really similar second season syndrome with their managers in the league, as to trying to find that inspiration in front of goal. And it's one to keep an eye on. I think it's a really important next block of fixtures for both of these teams to kind of get some confidence flowing before they have the break at Christmas.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they come back as after Christmas, whether they are sort of more of the same or whether they go back to, well, how both of them played last season, are a lot more that sort of attacking threat. Those are the 6 games that went on this weekend, but the most important game of them all is obviously Aerial Fantasy. So let's have a look about how we did this week. Now, I'm very keen to talk about Aerial Fantasy this week because I actually went ahead of Tom in our league. Because I was only 10 points off the top scorer in the world this week, which I'm really happy with. And yeah, I'm only 11 points behind Jacob now. I think that is largely because I put Rebecca Knack in. She got me 16 points on her own, which, yeah, she'd only had 7 points this season before then. But yeah, Visionary this week, obviously got a clean sheet as well, got 3 bonus points as well as her Visionary points. I was very happy. And I played the wall, so that was all doubled as well. Yeah, it was a good weekend. But the number one player in our league is no longer Venky's Out by Neil Thompson. No, 1 point ahead of Neil. We have two people, which is Stan Lee's team, Villa Nova, and Emil Bjorn's team, Cuthbert and Ernie, both on 572 points. They are currently top of the league, but yeah, the top three are only separated by 1 point. The best score in the Decode the WSL League this week was, in fact, Emil Bjorn that's gone top with Cuthbert and Ernie. 92 points this game week, only 3 points off the world number one. They captained Rebecca Knack, so got 32 points, and they also had 14 points from Bunny Shaw, 10 from Kasparai, 10 from Kirsty Hansen, and 9 from Bitter Olsen, which is one of those teams that when you look back at it after the matches have gone on, you're like, oh yeah, of course Bunny Shaw did well, and of course Bitter Olsen scored, and it all makes sense. How did you two get on this week?
Yeah, I thought I was happy with my transfers. I think it was a pretty solid week for me. It wasn't anything too special. I didn't use any chips, and a kind of bit of a planning week as far as like brought in Beta Olsen. It's obviously a nice bonus that she actually got scored and got that visionary bounce as well. So kind of planning for this double game week coming up. So yeah, but yeah, I did okay. How about you, Jacob?
Yeah, I got quite high points, but I mean, I played the Wolves, so I got 74 points. But obviously, Arsenal, Chelsea, and United not keeping clean sheets meant that my score wasn't as big as it could potentially be. I did captain Kasparai, so I got 20 points from Kasparai. I got slightly lucky just because Natty Bjorn didn't play, which meant she came out on my side, and I got 10 points from Kirsty Hansen off the bench. And then, yeah, I mean, I was really close. I was deciding at the beginning of the game week to transfer in either Rebecca Knack or Kasparai, but I thought Kasparai had a potentially bigger upside just because she has that like assists, that, like the more goal threat. But I don't regret my decisions. I'm in a good position. 28th in the Decoding WSL League. I'm actually 10th out of all the Spurs fans, so that's what I'm hoping to top that. That's my aim.
I think Kasparai is probably a better long-term option than Knack, just because if Greenwood comes back, then potentially Knack's place is under threat, whereas I don't think anyone's dislodging Kasparai anytime soon.
Yeah, I think Knack for me was one that if she wasn't a visionary, I probably wouldn't have put her in. I'd probably have gone for Jade Rose instead because obviously she's also playing and is significantly cheaper. But yeah, I had a very similar bit to you, Jacob, in that I had Bjorn and Bright in my team. And they obviously both came off, and Kirsty Hansen and Olivia Holt went on, who got 18 points between them. So I was very happy about Sonia's decisions.
You two dodgy
went in my way.
You dodgy managers, Mike. How are you getting away with this? They can't keep getting away with this.
It's all right. I'll get about 12 points next week, and it'll all balance out. Yeah, there is obviously double game week coming up. We'll look more at that in our preview pod where we start talking about who we're potentially bringing in this week and captaining and stuff like that. But for today's pod, that's it. Thank you both for coming on. Thank you, listener, for tuning in to Decoding the WSL, or viewer, if you're watching us on the YouTube channel. Don't forget to go and check out the Decoding the Match episode between London City Lionesses and Brighton. Myself and Tom did a sort of full video episode, interviews with Maisie Simons and Daria Vidicic. So yeah, go check that on the YouTube channel. It was really fun to do, and hopefully we'll do some more of them because none of us have done a Decoding the Match for a while. I think you two did one at Spurs last season. That was the last one. So yeah, hopefully we'll get some more of them booked in for after Christmas. But thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Tom. And we'll speak to you at the next one.